She thought her best friend was living the dream, a rich husband, luxury cars, a perfect home, until envy made her take her place. And she discovered too late the deep secret her friend had been hiding all along. Sandra and Anita grew up the way only true childhood friends do, sharing one life between two bodies. They lived in the same noisy compound in Sayulere, Lagos, running barefoot between buckets of water, and plaiting each other's hair on Saturday mornings. Sandra was the calm one, gentle, patient, always thinking before she spoke. Anita was fire, loud, dramatic, full of dreams bigger than the street they grew up on. She always wanted more, always chased the spotlight, always imagined a richer future. But no matter how different they were, they moved together like sisters. If you saw Anita, Sandra wasn't far behind. If Sandra cried, Anita picked the fight for her. If Anita failed a test, Sandra stayed up all night helping her study. Their mothers would smile and say, "These two." They were born in different houses but raised by one heart. Growing up didn't change that. They whispered their dreams to each other under the ceiling fan at night. Sandra wanted a simple life, a small business, a peaceful home, a man who loved her sincerely. Anita wanted everything: big house, expensive cars, a rich husband, trips outside Nigeria. But still, they held on to each other tightly. By their final year in university, Sandra had started catering small events to support herself. That was how she met Victor, a handsome, well-dressed young businessman who came to one of her corporate deliveries. He complimented her food, then her smile, then her kindness, and before Sandra could understand what was happening, she was falling in love with him. Victor was everything she had prayed for: calm, respectful, generous, focused. He would bring her lunch unexpectedly, help her carry trays to events, even wait for her after class so she wouldn't walk home alone. Sandra couldn't believe God had sent her such a man. When she introduced him to Anita, Anita hugged her excitedly. Finally, our own Sandra has found love. And in those early days, Anita meant it. She was happy for her friend. She had no reason to envy, no reason to feel left behind. But when Victor proposed months after their graduation, Anita felt something she didn't want to name. A small pinch in her chest, a quiet whisper. Victor gave Sandra the proposal most girls dreamed about: a candlelit dinner in Victoria Island, roses covering the table, and a silver ring that sparkled like morning sun on water. Their wedding became the talk of Lagos, elegant, classy, overflowing with love. Sandra wore a gown that looked like it came straight from a bridal magazine. Victor stood tall beside her, smiling proudly. The hall glittered, the air smelled of orchids. And guests whispered, "Sandra has entered enjoyment. This is marriage." Anita stood beside her as maid of honor, smiling brightly for pictures. But somewhere deep inside her chest, something tightened, not hatred. Just a quiet longing she tried to ignore. After the wedding, Sandra moved into Victor's Lekki mansion, a white duplex with large windows, polished floors, and luxury cars lined up like trophies. When Anita visited for the first time, she was stunned. Sandra had truly stepped into a world she used to pray about. A world Anita herself always dreamed of. Sandra welcomed her with a bright smile. She showed her the living room, the kitchen, the walk-in closet filled with lace, gold jewelry, and perfumes from abroad. Inside, Anita felt something warm and bitter rising. This should have been my life, but she swallowed it down and hugged her friend tightly, because at this point, her envy was still small, still soft, still pretending to be admiration. At first, Sandra truly believed her marriage would be everything she dreamed of: peaceful, loving, and blessed. Victor treated her gently, opened doors for her, and bought her small gifts just to see her smile. But slowly, quietly, the cracks began to show. It started with the nights he didn't come home. Sandra would sit in the living room waiting, her dinner growing cold, her eyes drifting to the clock as the hours passed. When Victor finally returned at 2 or 3 a.m., he smelled of alcohol. And sometimes, of another woman's perfume. When she asked softly, "Victor, where were you?" he would glare at her like she had insulted him. One night, her voice trembled as she said, "You didn't pick my calls." The slap came so suddenly that she didn't even feel the pain at first. Her ears rang. Her vision blurred. She froze, staring at him with fear she couldn't hide. Victor's anger vanished instantly. He grabbed her face gently. "Sandra, I'm sorry. You provoked me. You know I hate nagging." He kissed her forehead, and the next morning, he handed her a brand new iPhone and a handbag worth more than her rent before marriage. That became the rhythm of her marriage. He hits, he apologizes, he buys gifts, she forgives, he hits again. The more violent he became, the more expensive his gifts grew, as if he believed money could erase fear. Sandra wanted to tell someone, her mother, her sister, even Anita, but each time, shame gripped her throat like a hand. People admired her marriage. They envied her life. They called her lucky. How could she admit that the man who bought her diamonds also left bruises on her ribs? So she learned to hide everything. She mastered the art of makeup, concealer for her cheek, powder for her jawline, long sleeves for her arms. She smiled through pain and posted happy pictures online, pretending everything was perfect, and everyone believed her, especially Anita. Each time Anita visited, she admired the house as if it were a museum of luxury, the chandeliers, the white marble floors, the fresh flowers, the imported perfume Sandra kept on her dressing table. Victor would greet Anita warmly. "Ah, Anita, you're welcome. Hope traffic wasn't too bad." She would blush and laugh. "Thank you, sir." Sandra sat there smiling, hiding the swelling on her palm where Victor had squeezed too hard the night before. Anita's admiration slowly turned into longing. She would lie awake at night thinking, Sandra has everything. A mansion, cars, money, and a man who pampers her. If I had a husband like Victor, I would never complain. I would worship him. She didn't know the truth. Sandra never let her see it. So when Anita compared her own life, the small apartment, the unreliable boyfriends, the constant hustle, envy began to grow like a weed in her heart. At first, she suppressed it. She told herself, it's just admiration. But admiration turned into desire, desire turned into fantasy, fantasy turned into bitterness. She began to think Sandra didn't deserve what she had. She takes it for granted, Anita whispered to herself one night. If that man were mine, I would treat him like gold. Anita became more deliberate. She started dressing elegantly whenever she visited, fitted dresses, subtle perfume, jewelry that glittered under the lights. She laughed gaily around Victor, touched her hair softly when speaking to him, and praised him for everything. Victor, you're such a responsible man. Victor, you treat Sandra so well. Victor, any woman would be blessed to have you. Sandra didn't notice the tone, she was too busy hiding her bruises, but Victor noticed, not because he wanted Anita, but because he could sense her desperation. He smirked sometimes when she wasn't looking. Anita tried harder, helping him carry small items, sitting near him during conversations, offering to run errands. She even started posting pictures at Sandra's house, writing captions like, "Marriage is sweet when you marry your best friend." She wasn't referring to Sandra, she was referring to Victor. But no matter how hard she tried, Victor never looked at her with interest. He barely gave her more than polite attention, and that rejection cut deeper than she expected, because in Anita's mind, she deserved Sandra's life more than Sandra did. One evening, after another visit where Victor barely acknowledged her, Anita walked home bitterly. Her envy had grown into something heavy. Something dangerous. 4 days, she couldn't sleep. She kept imagining herself in Sandra's clothes, living in that mansion, riding in those cars, being called Madam Victor. She prayed, she fasted, she even tried subtle flirting, nothing worked, and finally, she crossed a line she never thought she would cross. She decided to visit an herbalist, a man known in the outskirts of Lagos for performing spiritual works, the kind that bind hearts, break marriages, and rewrite destinies. She walked there with purpose, breath shaky, heart pounding, mind clouded with envy. All she could think about was the life Sandra lived, the life she believed belonged to her. The herbalist was an old man with calm eyes and a voice that sounded like rustling leaves. He looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "Why have you come?" Anita swallowed, her voice trembled, yet her desire was stronger than her fear. "I want Victor," she said. "I want him to leave his wife and love only me." The herbalist blinked slowly, studying her face. Then he sighed. "This kind of work," he said quietly, "binds destinies. If I do it, you must never leave him. Even if he hurts you. Even if he destroys you. The charm cannot be undone. Anita felt the warning like a breeze on her skin. Soft. Easy to ignore, her jealousy spoke louder. Do it, she insisted. I'm not afraid. The old man shook his head, almost pitying her. I will not be blamed later. Once I throw the charm into the river, it is gone forever. Your life will be tied to his until death. Anita nodded eagerly. I accept. And with that, the ritual began. He tied red and black threads together, chanted strange words, and placed Victor's name inside a small clay pot. He burned herbs that filled the room with thick smoke. Anita's heart raced as she felt the air shift, something unseen wrapping around her. When the herbalist finished, he wrapped the charm in cloth. It must be thrown into the river tonight. He said, after that, there is no turning back. Anita watched him walk away with it. She felt victorious. She had no idea she was sealing her own fate. The spell takes hold. Things changed quickly, almost overnight. Victor became distant with Sandra, cold, irritable, unexplainably angry. He stopped sleeping in their bedroom. He stopped coming home. He stopped pretending to love her. One morning, without warning, he told her, Sandra, leave my house. Just like that, Sandra froze, confused, trembling. What? What did I do? He didn't answer. He simply dragged her bags outside and shut the door in her face. Sandra cried the entire way to her mother's place, humiliated, broken, and still too ashamed to explain the truth of her marriage. Meanwhile, Anita waited, breathless, for Victor to call her. And he did, not with affection, not with warmth, just with a strange, unsettling urgency. Come to my house. Anita believed the charm had worked perfectly. She dressed in her best gown, applied her makeup, and duplicated Sandra's soft smile as she walked in. But the house felt cold. Victor looked different. His eyes were darker. Harder. Still, Anita was thrilled she had taken Sandra's place. Within a week, Victor married her. She entered the mansion not as a visitor, but as the new Madame Victor. But the charm did not bring love. The first beating happened before the honeymoon. He smashed her phone because she asked for the Wi-Fi password. When she cried, he hit her again. Harder. There were no gifts afterward, only curses, yelling, and threats. Anita told herself it was stress. That he'd calm down, but he didn't. The beatings came daily, for speaking, for asking questions, even for breathing too loudly. He slapped her in the living room, he punched her in the kitchen, and one afternoon, he dragged her into the compound and beat her in front of the security guard. The charm had bound him to her body. Not to her peace, not to her safety, not to her happiness. And the more she tried to resist, the worse he became. One night, shaking, bruised, and terrified, Anita ran back to the herbalist's shrine. She fell to the floor, crying, "Please undo it. I'm begging you." The herbalist looked at her with sad eyes. "I warned you. Once it is thrown into the river, it can't be undone." Anita screamed, she begged, she pulled at her hair. He repeated gently, "Unless you can retrieve the charm from the bottom of the river, you are bound to him." Her world collapsed. She walked out of the shrine with bandages around her arms and ribcage, a walking shadow of the woman who once envied her friend's life. And for the first time, she realized she had not stolen Sandra's blessings. She had stolen Sandra's suffering. Anita left the herbalist's shrine broken, trembling, and wrapped in dirty bandages. The Lagos sun felt too bright, the air too heavy, the world too loud. Every step she took sent sharp pain through her ribs, but the pain inside her chest was worse, a gnawing regret that ate her from the inside out. Victor was no longer a mystery, no longer an obsession, no longer the fantasy she built in her mind. He was a monster, and she had tied herself to him with her own hands. For the first time since the charm was cast, Anita saw her reflection in a shop window, swollen lip, bruised cheek, faded eyes. She didn't recognize herself. And she knew exactly where she needed to go. Sandra had moved back to Saryulia, renting a small self-contained room and focusing on her catering business. She had lost weight, but she had regained her peace, a kind of quiet strength that made her look more beautiful than any gold jewelry Victor ever bought her. Anita took a bike to Sandra's area. People stared at her wounds, But she didn't care. Her heart was heavier than her body. When she reached Sandra's door, she collapsed to her knees. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Sandra, please open." Sandra came out with a bowl in her hand, startled by the sight before her. Anita lifted her tear-streaked face. "Sandra, please. I'm sorry. I destroyed everything. I took your husband. I wanted your life." She broke into sobs. "I did charms. I forced everything. And now, I'm dying inside. Please forgive me." Sandra froze. This was the same woman who stood as her sister for years, the same woman who betrayed her, the same woman who stole her home, the same woman who laughed behind her, and now she was kneeling, broken, bleeding, bandaged like a wounded animal. Sandra set the bowl aside and helped her stand. She didn't hug her. But she didn't push her away either. Anita cried into her palms, "He beats me every day. Even outside. Even in front of people. I tried to run. I tried to break the charm. The herbalist said, I can't." Sandra inhaled deeply. After a long pause, she said softly, "Anita, I forgive you." Anita sobbed harder, collapsing against the wall. But Sandra continued, "I forgive you. But we can never be friends again." Anita's crying stopped, her heart plummeted. Sandra wiped her hands on her wrapper. "You broke something that cannot be repaired. I can't walk with you the way we used to. But I won't hold your sin against you anymore." It was the kind of forgiveness that carried peace, but also finality. Sandra walked back inside her room. She didn't look back. And Anita, standing outside the door, realized she had lost the one thing she truly had. The only person who ever loved her sincerely. She returned to Victor's house because she had no choice. The charm pulled at her chest like a chain. If she tried to leave again, she felt sharp pain gripping her heart, warning her that death was near. So she went back to the same mansion she once admired. The front door was wide open. Music was blasting. Laughter echoed through the hallway. Victor was hosting another party. Women in short dresses danced around him. Friends smoked, drank, and played loud games. When he saw her standing there bruised, bandaged, drained, he didn't pause. He didn't ask where she had gone. He didn't care. He simply pointed to the kitchen. "Go and serve my guests." And like a prisoner, she obeyed. She carried trays of food with shaking hands. She poured drinks while men whispered, "Is this not Madame Victor? Why she day look like this?" Some laughed, some pitied her. No one helped. Victor openly groped other women in front of her. He pulled one into the bedroom while music played on. Anita kept serving wine. Tears dripping silently onto the tray. When she accidentally dropped a glass, Victor descended on her right there, slapping her so hard she fell on her knees. The guests watched. No one moved. The herbalist's words replayed in her mind, "If you try to leave him, you will die." And in that moment, she understood. She was no longer a wife, no longer a rival, no longer a friend. She was a prisoner in a golden mansion, punished by the very life she once envied. Later that night, as the party died down and Anita cleaned the mess with trembling hands, she stared at the broken bottle on the floor. Her tears fell into the scattered glass. The life she wanted, the husband she coveted, the marriage she stole, had become her curse. And for the rest of her days, Anita would live with the consequences of a choice made in jealousy, a choice she could never undo. She no longer hoped for rescue. She no longer wished for escape. She no longer prayed for love. She simply survived, breath by breath, day by day, trapped in a marriage that glittered from far away but bled her dry up close. This was her destiny now, a destiny she chose, a destiny she could never undo. And somewhere in Lagos, Sandra continued growing, healing, and rebuilding her life, a quiet reminder that peace is the true luxury, and jealousy is a debt that always gets paid in full. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect. How many times have we admired someone else's life without knowing what they're truly going through behind closed doors? Not every smile is happiness, not every luxury means peace, and not every perfect couple is truly in love.